on the morning of 9/11, I was actually in my father's truck, and he was taking me to zero period PE at Thompson Junior High. And during our PE class, one of my classmates' father was in the Air Force, and he came in fully dressed in his uniform, pulled him out, and that's how we learned what happened that morning.
I learned about the events of 9/11. I was actually in high school when 9/11 happened. I was on a school bus going to high school when the radio on the school bus started talking about it. And then as soon as we got to the school, we all went to our first class, and the schools just shut down. All we did was watch the media, the news releases, everything coming out in all my classes that day. And that's how I found out about 9/11.
Got up to go to work. I was newly promoted to the command staff, headed into the office, turned on the Mark and Brian radio show, KLOS, and they weren't being silly. They were talking very seriously about some planes into the Twin Towers.
I was actually on duty at Station 2, and I woke up. As a rookie firefighter, our job is to wake up before everybody else does and usually start the coffee and get everything else, go pick up the newspaper and everything else for the morning. And my captain was already up. So he's all, hey, it was Battalion Chief Guard Marlon was what he retired at. He's a captain at that time at Station 2, and he said, hey, there's something going on. You need to watch this. And so we sat down just for a second, and I need to get Anthony.
We had been on fires, multiple fires that night, and he had woken me up to tell me, hey, you got to come, you got to see what's on TV right now. Don't know what it is right now, but you need to see it. So I came running in the front room, and as I came running in the front room, I was just astonished at what I'd seen on the TV.
We actually got a 9/11 call, so for a medical aid call, and I think it was East 8th, East 9th, and we ended up going there. And we got there. There was a gal that was bedridden, but she had a small little tiny TV, and she was actually watching it as well. So we actually watched the first tower fall there on a medical aid call.
The first tower fell. We were amazed and shocked. No one knew what was going on at that point in time, but we just knew that somehow or another America was under attack, and as we started to progress and understand more about it, the shocking events unfolded that morning, and firefighters became on the ready and watching our brother firefighters and sister firefighters from the FDNY respond and go into those towers, knowing they may not come back. And that became a reality later on, and it was tough for us as firefighters throughout the country to actually understand and how we walk through that and understanding that that's their job and that's what they were going to do, but that how tough that is to take for the firefighter family.
I was on a pretty large fire up in Northern California when the events of the day happened. I was working up there, and I'd been up there for 10 days on this fire. And we went to the morning briefing, and they said something about a moment of silence for New York. And I didn't know what had happened. We didn't have TV, so I was able the next hour or so to find out what had happened, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
I was going on duty. I was a training chief at the time, and once I got to the office on Olive Drive, everything was just a buzz. And all the TVs are on. We were having shift change that morning, and our incident commander, Steve Gage, had to take a phone call in the middle of it. He was standing in the hallway. He turned and looked at me and called me out, and he says, "We're going."
And then about the time I was finally finding out what was going on, I got a phone call from my boss back in Kern County and said, "Get your gear together, tell that fire you're leaving because the team is being activated and we're going east."
The three Bakersfield guys, we went as single resources. The incident commander for the team was Steve Gage from Kern County Fire Department, and he thought it was important that some Bakersfield guys go.
And the rest of the day was, I mean, my wife was a teacher at the time. I had to break away and pull her out of the classroom and tell her that I was heading out, go see my children before I left. We didn't know what was going to happen. And the rest of the day was just a craziness. And that night we flew out of Sacramento on one of the only planes in the air in the United States that was non-military, and it was very surreal.
And there were several county firefighters on that team, and we thought we were going to need some extra help, so we took some city firefighters as well. And we rounded the team up in Sacramento, and a private leased jet flew into a 737, flew into Mather Air Force Base and picked us all up. And then we flew to Albuquerque and picked up another team. And that was about the time I think we realized that somebody said that they were going to go to New York and we were going to the Pentagon.
In retrospect, because of all the health problems that have happened with the first responders at the World Trade Center, we were very fortunate in an unfortunate time to be chosen to go to the Pentagon.
All we started doing was doing what we do best. We just started thinking about, for myself at least, what are the logistics of this? What are we going to need? How are we going to outfit these people? If there's no planes in the sky, how are we going to get supplies to them? You know, how are we going to take care of this? And so the whole time, as soon as you get the call, you just start doing the logistics. You start thinking, what are we going to do once we hit the ground?
We're flying in and we're going to land in Baltimore, and the sun's just coming up as we're coming in. And you look on the wingtips and we have fighter jets on our wingtips. So everybody got a big cheer. Oh boy, we got fighter jets. And then everybody thought, oh, well, they're there because if this plane deviates, we're going to be shot out of the sky.
We got in close to Washington, D.C. when the sun came up on our plane. And we started to fly, and we flew actually kind of over the Pentagon. And we were able to look down from the plane and see smoke still coming up. It was still on fire. And this was the next morning when the sun came up. And so that was our first look of the Pentagon is, oh my goodness, it's still burning. I mean, we're going to be operating a bunch of search and rescue personnel, but it's still burning. And that was problematic.
We disembarked there at Baltimore. The plane spun around, took off, flew the other team up to New York.
Now the second time we saw the Pentagon was up close, and it was devastation. It was unbelievable devastation, like nothing I've ever seen before.
The first thing is the devastation of it. I don't know if you've ever been to the Pentagon, but it's a humongous structure, and there's a huge hole, and you can see obviously something has penetrated the Pentagon. And so you just stand in awe and look at it. There's still smoke, there's still fire, they're still putting water on it. I mean, when we got there, it was still an active event. It was just so difficult from an American standpoint to think someone actually attacked our Pentagon. And it's still to this day, I think about it and I still start shaking or I get chills thinking exactly what had happened.
Sadness. Just, you know, for the loss of life. You know, as a fireman, you go on lots of calls and you see a lot of trauma, a lot of death, but just the scale, you know, knowing that 180 people, not counting, you know, the people inside the building,